No hat this week. Cool.
Here's the secret. This is the big secret that I keep from everyone. If I'm wearing a hat, I haven't showered that day.
Okay.
Every time. And so today I have to go into work a little later and I have not showered for 5 days at this point. And so,
The grind, man. I love it.
uh-huh.
Cole's bathing routine for
That's
incriminating
true.
evidence later.
That might just be the beginning. I
Yeah.
don't really care.
And we welcome you to your Week 12 preview of Wilk and Wish, your bi-weekly update on Utah athletes in the National Football League. And we'd like to highlight you, the fan. My name's Tanner Wilkinson. He is Cole Wissinger. Cole,
I am.
somehow like the biggest conglomerate of fans in the state of Utah. If you had to pick one team, I think we'd all agree the Denver Broncos. They're on the TV the most often.
That's it. That is our media. It was for you. The Raiders are probably technically
They're
our media
catching there
designation
now.
now.
Yeah.
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 At least when I turn on the radio, I can hear a Raiders game. But historically, it has
Sure.
been the Denver Broncos.
Well, we're finally bringing in a Broncos fan today who's not even from Utah. He currently lives in Utah.
Or
From
Denver, for that matter.
True.
There's family ties. There's family ties.
Alex Doss.
What's up, Doss?
What a way to welcome him into the program. Appreciate you joining on with us, my friend. And hey, you've got some business to settle today. Given how I feel like, and look, as an Arizona Cardinals fan, I feel like you and I are in very similar situations in terms of what was being said about our teams. I think you were probably a little more optimistic than I was going into this season. However, I feel like both our teams sitting in pretty decent positions right now to at least be a playoff team. And yeah, excited to have you on today.
Yeah, definitely. I'm super excited to be on here. Cole's been talking about it for a while, so I was like, yeah, get me on.
Yeah. And
Sure.
Doss joins us. You know, Tanner and I talk about broadcasting high school football games. Doss has been the color guy for me a few times because he's got football experience. And this is a former state champion tight end that comes on to give X's and O's.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's one thing Cole and I do not have is the that kind of pedigree. So
yeah, I think Barrett enjoys my commentary. Well, just on the camera, was like, yeah, this is going to happen right here. This is what I would do. Or, we run a play, we don't jog a play. But,
uh, well, excited to have you on. Tell us a little bit about your backstory. So you're from Oregon originally.
mhm.
Don't end up a Seahawks fan, which I would assume there are a lot of Seahawk fans in Oregon. What was that dynamic like growing up in Oregon? Is that kind of a melting pot like Utah, or is it very Seahawk dominated?
Yeah, everyone was either Seahawks, 49ers, or Raiders fans because they were in Oakland at the time. So that's pretty predominant there. I grew up in Oregon, so I'm a Ducks fan with college, but third generation Broncos fan. My mom grew up in Summit County of Colorado. And so they were there during the Elway era and all of that. And one of my earliest memories of watching football was the Super Bowls in the late 90s for the Broncos. So it was pretty fun growing up. When I was older, though, and everyone's talking crap, about football teams, it was just we get in, we're the wild card with Mike Shanahan, and we have someone, Plummer or Greasy, and then just get absolutely boat raced by Peyton Manning.
I mean, Plummer took you to what, 13-3 in an AFC championship. That's
Yeah.
nothing
And
to shake your head
then,
at.
yeah, so Plummer did there, but usually it was Peyton Manning blowing us out in the divisional round. So it was a little rough for a while, but right as I go on my mission, we signed Peyton Manning. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, what the heck? So I miss prime Peyton, the 2013 Broncos that just broke every offensive record. And then I got back in time for the Super Bowl. Cole, we
Which
probably
is the worst version of Peyton Manning in his career, by the way.
Oh yeah, it was pretty sad. It's just like wheeling him out. He can't move. His neck's fused together at that point. Like, but hey, we won a Super Bowl. That was like the no fly zone Von Miller era. I played defensive end in linebacker, so you're always looking up to Von and doing all that stuff. So and my high school coach was a defensive coach, so it was fun to have a a defensive team you rooted for, and then you got your offensive taste as a Ducks fan with Chip Kelly. So it was good. It was a good time.
I don't know if I've gotten to talk about this because we haven't had a Broncos fan on yet, but I mean, Doss, I think I've mentioned it to you.
Yeah.
My earliest football memories, because we're about the same age, are
Yeah.
those John Elway Broncos. Like I grew up in a place where the Steelers were the only option, but because my parents weren't super into football, the first jersey I ever owned was a John Elway jersey. I want to be a Denver Broncos fan, but the Steelers are number one. And so I'll fair weather them every once in a while because I have that remembrance. But yeah, John Elway is one of my favorite all time players.
Yeah. It's just, either that Josh Allen for that generation kind of thing. This huge dude with a cannon of an arm willing to run it every once in a while. Uh, and then Shanahan. I mean, that's the offense everyone runs now that has a successful offense.
Yeah, so the Pro Football Hall of Fame shortlist just came out this week.
Yeah.
Was Shanahan on it? Like, when does Shanahan get in the Hall? Considering he has two Super Bowls, he's got the winning percentage. It kind of fell off at the end, but his legacy is the number one legacy in football for the past 10 years now.
Yeah, I mean, Shanahan, I'm pretty sure comes from the Walsh tree. So it's like crazy how every year they're like, well, this is the McVay tree or the Shanahan tree. And like you kind of look at like, what are the actual roots of this?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he was on the staff for one of the 49ers Super Bowls. So he has a third. You might need to fact check me on that one. I'll have to look it up on Wikipedia. But uh, I can't imagine why not. Like he won two Super Bowls, and it wasn't like he inherited some great team because Dan Reeves went to a few and couldn't get over the hump. And then they played each other in that first Super Bowl. That people forget that Dan Reeves was the coach. He tried to get rid of Elway,
Yep.
Maddox, and then he ended up over at the Steelers. Only quarterback to win his playoff game for the Steelers that wasn't drafted by him, by the way. Uh,
That's
so
right. That's right.
yeah, it was a good time. Like growing up, I think he'll probably be in. He's got to get in soon. Like you can't. How many two-time Super Bowl champs are there that aren't in the league? Like
Tom
if Eli Manning
Flores,
gets
maybe.
if Eli
Yeah.
Manning gets in, you have to put in Shanahan.
Well,
So
what was your expectation this season? You mentioned you're an Oregon fan.
yeah,
Well, lo and behold, the Denver Broncos draft a quarterback from the University of Oregon, who Cole and I both were a little skeptical on drafting that high. I'm eating crow on a lot of quarterbacks in this draft. I was so down on Jaden Daniels. I liked Bo Nix as a development project. I didn't think he was going to come in and do what he's doing now. What has that experience been like? Because I told Temp, who we all know, yesterday, I told him, like, if the Arizona Cardinals had drafted Zach Wilson and Zach had been good, you'd never hear me shut up about it. I mean, that's all I'd talk about. Those would be all the jerseys I have. What has that experience been like for you, seeing your college guy become your pro guy?
here's the thing: is it's no different. Like everyone was sitting there like, oh, Bo Nix can't throw the deep ball. I'm like, did you watch any games? Like I've watched this. They're like, yeah, he's like a system check down quarterback, which yeah, we do have a high efficiency check down, but he was hitting Troy Franklin deep all the time. And I was not worried or had any concerns about that. I figured we'd probably be around 9 to 10 wins. It was kind of my expectations, flirting with that seventh seed, but the AFC is just so deep. Not so much this year. I think a lot of the AFC teams that I thought were going to be good have kind of taken a step back. But I'm not the least bit shocked. I do remember the first, it was Springville or Bonneville at Springville, got in the car with Cole. I'm like, I think we can go. Like, I think we're going to be pretty good. We got some weapons. And Cole laughed at me and said, you guys are going to be in contention for the first pick overall of one of the worst teams. There's no weapons on that team, which in Cole's defense, we got Cortland Sutton and Bo Nix, and that's about it. But the offensive line plays pretty well.
The offensive line is out there right now.
Yeah.
His average is still embarrassingly low, and Sean Payton is just doing the like corpse of Drew Brees thing with that offense. But he can do it because the offensive line is second best in football to the Detroit Lions, who are the best team in football. Like
Yeah.
that'll take you
By
places.
far, by far. We'll get into it later about Dan Campbell. I was on that train day one. But yeah, the offense is doing really well in spite of our weapons. I think we're gonna have to make a tough choice with Garrett Bowles. There's just not any good tackles in this draft. And you don't want like got to sign him. I think if we can get like a 2 year with two void years and spread out the cap a little bit, keep him.
Sean Payton doesn't know anything about spreading out cap. I don't know how they'll be able to figure it out.
That is my worry is we become the Saints with Sean Payton, where he just racks up all the credit card bills and we're just stuck for 10 years trying to pay it off.
Taysom Hill and his three generation of children are just so grateful for the man that Sean Payton is.
Yeah. Hey, Taysom, I picked Taysom up because Kincaid got hurt and he single handedly won in our mission league. So,
He'll do that.
yeah, it's just good timing. But yeah, I think the Broncos are definitely building a solid foundation. The thing that blows my mind, like, yeah, there was going to be a positive regression for the defense, but Vance Joseph is doing it with Patrick Surtain the second and a bunch of guys. Like, Bonito's playing really well, but I don't know if that's because Bonito is so good, given like the draft concerns. He's the smaller guy, but he has second most sacks in the league, and it's just amazing how they're doing it with a couple of like nobody's going to be a Pro Bowler on that defense other than
Yeah,
Zach Allen, maybe.
I love the roster construction of their pass rushers. Just like every single body is the fastest guy imaginable off the edge, and there isn't a superstar. Like Benito's got the sacks, but sometimes they like help him out over there. But every single they go five deep on edge rushers. It seems like everyone can get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I think they just do a great job scheming with Joseph, and he puts people in a best spot to optimize their abilities. So it's good. I mean, you have the Lamar Jackson game, so that's a little rough. But other than that, they've just balled out. So
Yeah,
that's fun. I definitely think we're moving in the right direction. I know Cole's not the biggest Sean Payton guy, but I said like if it doesn't work out, it could be something where Sean Payton's kind of this John Fox guy that gets us into progressively always being a better and better playoff team, and then we make a Gary Kubiak move. I don't know who that is in 4 years, but it could happen.
Clint Kubiak,
Maybe
That would be
Ben Johnson.
wild.
Clay Kubiak.
Can you imagine if a Kubiak came to Denver? Can you just imagine that? That would just be
Yeah.
unbelievable. I
Or
feel
if
the
the
same.
49ers are ever idiots and get rid of Kyle. Like we missed so bad. We missed so bad. Vance Joseph, great defensive coordinator, but we should have taken Kyle in that cycle and gotten John Lynch as a GM.
Well, looking at Arizona too, I feel the same way. We got Buda Baker and a bunch of guys. Like there are not a lot of recognizable names on that Arizona defense, but just guys that play hard. They scheme, like you said, they scheme well, and it's paid dividends for both our squads. So let's get to the picks. A lot of buys this week. So Doss, I think you have to go perfect to win the $25 Amazon gift card
Yeah, I
this
was
week.
looking at it. And I'm like, oh, these are all easy picks. Then I got to like the last four games of the schedule. I was like, oh, this is like
It's
one
Oh
point
boy.
favorite, 2 point favorite. Like this is gonna be hard.
Tonight, Cole Steelers in Cleveland taking on the Browns. I'm going Pittsburgh. As much as this would be a Tomlin game to lose at times, I think this game is within one score at the end of the day, but I'm still taking Pittsburgh. I need Pickens to go off in my guillotine league because I have so many guys on bye this week that just praying for some moon
Yeah.
balls from Russ.
Fantasy is going to be a bloodbath. I'm glad we have a Broncos fan on today specifically. The Amazon Prime ads have been talking about how this is the oldest rivalry in the AFC. Do you take umbrage with that, considering that the Broncos Raiders, Broncos Chargers, the whole AFC West has been AFC since AFL days?
Yeah.
That's the oldest rivalry, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the AFC North has some stuff, but the Browns weren't the Browns. Like they didn't exist for a while. And this
Yeah.
is technically not the same franchise. I think there was something with when they moved to Baltimore, became the Ravens, that they like kept different things and all that. So yeah, I mean, it's a rivalry. I think the best rivalry in the NFL is definitely Ravens Steelers. Like everyone knows that, but yeah, definitely like the Raiders Chiefs. Chargers with Air Coryell, Broncos. There's just so many Super Bowl appearances in that division.
Yeah.
Been together forever. I think maybe the NFC East is the only other one that can kind of hold up to that.
By the way, I'm taking the Steelers tonight, if that was not obvious. Doss,
Oh
what's your
yeah,
pick?
yeah. I'm going Steelers.
Okay, cool.
I did see on Pat McAfee they're talking about how terrible Tomlin's record is on Thursday night football, especially Thursday night away games.
Hmm.
But I think that defense is just so good, and Chris Boswell is the offense, so they can do that. I don't want to talk about Wilson.
Carson Palmer reincarnated. Uh,
uh,
Here's what, by the way, I don't know if you saw one of the biggest roasts I've ever seen on Twitter today. Dan Orlovsky said that Pittsburgh can't beat a guy like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, or Josh Allen with just field goals when they
yeah,
literally just beat Lamar Jackson with field goals.
Hmm.
yeah.
So let's go to old X because J.J. Watt had something to say about it.
Oh, they were roasting Orlovsky on Pat McAfee today.
So Orlovsky says this. Watt says that this is a wild take to make 4 days after literally beating a team with only field one of these teams with only field goals. And I quote, that's like the sports media equivalent of a quarterback running out of the back of their own end zone. I'd like to report a murder. I literally tweeted it with the Michael Scott, there's been a murder, because my
Yeah.
gosh, that anyway,
I
had to
feel
share
like
that today.
the main ESPN guys just don't know. They don't know ball sometimes. They say some of the dumbest things, and that's
Art
probably part of
Scott.
the 24-hour news cycle. You just have to keep churning out content, and they're just Nostradamus, make a bunch of vague predictions, and eventually it'll happen, kind of thing. But I don't
And
know.
that's Orlovsky has some really good segments with Mina Kimes and Ryan Clark where they can go into actual X's and O's and it
Yeah,
looks good. But yeah, I mean that it's the volume, it's the shotgun approach where if you have to say so many things that eventually you
yeah,
run out of things.
yeah. I think
Tanner, we're not doing a daily podcast.
yeah, spreading it
No,
out,
Putting the
like
foot down
letting
right now.
people like putting
no.
in their different inputs has helped. I think a lot with ESPN instead of the same show, Sports Center, 7 times a day. So you're gonna get some wild things said, I think. But Pat McAfee did point out Orlovsky is like the guy that always steps up. Anytime they do something, they always make him go out there, and with that, you're gonna make some boneheaded mistakes.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they had a little bit more colorful language, but I think this is a family friendly podcast.
The closest we've come to having to make this explicit was someone was aroused at Saquon's reverse hurdle. So, I mean, at this point,
Yeah.
uh,
Who wasn't?
Joe Sheen.
Yeah.
Mara.
Uh, so the
oh,
Minnesota Vikings play the Bears on Sunday. I am going to take the Vikings.
yeah, just better coaching here, better scheming this late in the season. Chicago's down bad after that block last week. They had a chance switching things up, and it didn't work. It's not going to work this week either, Minnesota.
Yeah, I think Minnesota for sure. This was my like cold take of the year. I thought that the Vikings should have tanked after the JJ. I'm like, just tank, get a good offensive line, get some good picks. But Kevin O'Connell, if it's not Mike Tomlin or Sean Payton, I think O'Connell's definitely in line for coach of the year with what he was able to do with this team. So I'm taking the Vikings for sure.
Detroit in Indianapolis, Anthony Richardson somehow looked brilliant a week ago, but the Jets are kind of making everyone look brilliant. That's not going to happen this week. Detroit wins, and they win big because, as we've discussed about Dan Campbell, both in public and private, he does not care. This team does not care who you are and what you've done. They're going to bite your kneecap off.
Yeah.
I'm also taking Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit's my pick. As I said, they went 0-5, I'm like, guys, this team's gonna sneak into the playoffs, and the technicality kept them out. I'm like, guys, I am on the Detroit Lions in our Mission Fantasy Football League chat. I've been on them ever since. I think Chris Long on his podcast had the quote, "It's not personal. We just hate everyone," is kind of the mantra of this team. They are just beating the tar out of everyone. So you can't pick against the Lions until they lose.
New England and Miami, another contender, honestly, for one of the oldest rivalries in the AFC. And Miami looks like they're figuring it out. If any team is gonna catch up to Denver from behind, Miami and Cincinnati are the two that are still kind of involved in it. And so you cannot drop any of these that you can't drop. And so I'm going to take Miami.
Yeah, Dolphins on a roll. It's Mike McDaniel and Tua. They're gonna go. They're already on a run. Honestly, if you look at it, they're getting healthier, and I take the under on this game though. I think New England gives them a better game. I just am a big Drake May guy, man. Like that guy is going to be really good for New England. This is going to be a historic draft class at the end of the day, and so I'm taking the Dolphins.
Yeah, if those Giants make any more boneheaded decisions and get rid of Dable, the Patriots should pick him up so fast. I think, especially with May and that prototypical like Josh Allen, athletic, huge, big arm, like that's that. But that being said, Mike McDaniel and that offense is just loaded with weapons. I think the biggest thing that's going to hold them back is that offensive line hasn't been healthy. So that'll keep it, not making 70 a game, but something like the 35 points. I don't think the Patriots can put that up.
Tampa Bay in the Meadowlands. Sad
Doesn't matter who
days.
they're playing. I'm
Yeah,
going to take Tampa Bay.
yeah,
My
yeah.
computer just reloaded, and so I don't have the schedule in front of me. I'm trying to get it up on my phone. But the way you teed that up, Tanner, I don't care. I don't care which team in New York is playing. I'm not taking the New Jersey whatever football team. Give me Tampa Bay. But go ahead.
Yeah,
No,
but
sorry,
cool.
I
Get the
interrupted you.
Italian in.
Tommy DeVito magic isn't happening here, man.
Yeah.
Baker finally has the schedule ease up, even with the injuries Tampa Bay's had. They got a shot. The way Atlanta's looked and Kirk Cousins has looked the last 2 weeks, Tampa's going to have a shot to sneak in again. I like the Bucks on the road.
Yeah, I'm a big Baker fan. I wouldn't want any of my kids that I coach to kind of model after early Baker, but I think he's matured a little bit, and you kind of there needs to be one of those characters in the league each year. I think Baker fills that role pretty well. And despite Mike Evans and Chris Godwin being out, ripped to my fantasy team, I'm taking the Bucks here.
Next up, NFC East. You mentioned it, Das. This is rivalry central, and these two teams coming into the season, when you looked ahead to week 12, you didn't think it was going to be close. And now it's probably not going to be close in the wrong direction for Dallas fans. Dallas plays Washington, and I am taking the Commanders.
Yeah, Washington. If you would have told me Dallas was a 10-point favorite coming into this game at the beginning of the season, I would have believed you. No, man, it's the Manders. Real interested to see second half of the season. Cliff Kingsbury is not great. Know that from some experience, and that's been a question mark at this point for the Commanders. He's got a chance to prove a lot of people wrong here this weekend in DC.
Yeah, I think the whole getting games on film for Cliff and Jaden, there's some validity to that. I love Jaden Daniels, and I'm terrified because they keep showing all the juxtapositions of him and RG3. And man, is he a skinny kid out there, but he can sling it. So I'm definitely picking the Commanders. I think they have something going pretty well there.
Kansas City is in Carolina. Oof. A couple of weeks ago, if I would have told you that Carolina would have had 3 wins heading into this game, I would have laughed at you. Oh, they're going to stay at 3 wins. Kansas City wins. Kansas City wins big. What do they do? Stop the run. What's the one thing Carolina's done okay the last few weeks is run the football. Kansas City's got this by a mile.
I also take Kansas City.
Yeah, it pains my soul to say it. I should be a Chiefs fan. I love tight end play. I love the creativeness of Andy Reid, but I just can't stand them. As the Broncos runs deep. So I begrudgingly say Chiefs. I'm also trying to win here, so
Yeah, you can't afford any. And so up until this point, have we all picked the same?
Yes, I was
teams?
just going to say we've all picked the same, and
There's one more morning, afternoon, like early afternoon game on the Sunday slate. It's Titans Texans. I take the Texans.
Texans.
And so through the whole Thursday and morning slate of Sunday, we are in unison. Now games get a little good.
Yeah, like I said, the first 8 games, I'm like, this is gonna be easy. I'm gonna break that record. And then I got to like the last 4 or 5 of the schedule. I was like, oh boy, this is a close one.
So I think we should all be in lockstep at least for the game relevant for you, Doss, and then they get
Yeah.
really good. So Broncos Raiders, I take Denver.
I'm also taking Denver.
Yeah. Bo Nix is hitting his stride. I think he's really Sean Payton and them are going to get him the offensive rookie of the year. Like we'll see how Jaden goes. Jaden's got some tougher teams. We have a pretty good shot against the rest of our schedule. It all comes down to whether or not the Chiefs rest their players. They don't have the perfect season, but they are going to be competing. So if like the Bills lose one more game and they can afford to lose a game and still keep home field advantage to the playoffs, I think we can even sneak that win in. So it'll be interesting. But I mean, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, and scooting around like he does, it's pretty good.
San Francisco at Lambeau. Talk about an out of division rivalry over the last decade plus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking the Niners. It's just Green Bay's still just missing something. They're really good. They're really good, but there's just something not quite there. Shanahan seems to just have the advantage on LaFleur, so I'm riding with that until LaFleur can prove me wrong.
So I'm going LaFleur, but it's this offensive coaching battle that I was going to key off on too. I think LaFleur's ready to make that leap. Now he's got the more spectacular quarterback. Things haven't quite clicked for Green Bay the way that they could have, when we were looking at the preseason, but I think this is a chance because San Francisco is looking even, more shaky.
Yeah, I think they're getting healthy though a little bit. Like obviously Ayuk's got the ACL and there's some soreness in Brock's shoulder or whatever, but C-Mac's back. And to Tanner's point, they've just owned this rivalry. Like Kyle Shanahan wins in Green Bay, and even like going to Green Bay, they somehow still make it happen in the playoffs. So it's kind of hard to pick against Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers in this rivalry.
My brother's going to give me a hard time picking against his Packers. Trust me, no one wants to see the 49ers lose more
Yeah.
than I.
Yeah.
And my brother was at that playoff game last year. My heart was broken for him that he flew from Alaska to
Dude,
San Francisco to go to that game and then for them to lead the whole time. I hate the Niners. Want Green Bay to win.
yeah.
I'm just going with what I think is going to happen.
I think Jordan just doesn't have confidence in his knee because he keeps kind of tweaking it a little bit after that first game in Brazil against the Eagles, where he got hurt pretty bad. So I think that's probably what's going on. Because man, they just have all these young kids flying around. They don't have a true number one, but you can't game plan against all of them, which is crazy.
Tanner, your Cardinals, in order to stay at the top of the division, have a game on the road against the Seattle Seahawks. And I take the Seahawks here.
To quote the great Phil Dunphy, as I've done many times on this show, key to a good birthday, low expectations. And no, it's not my birthday, but I'm also picking Seattle. We've won 4 of 5, 3 of which were on last second field goals, essentially, with a backup kicker. Like it doesn't get much more fluky than that at times for Arizona. There's still a lot of things to love, a lot of good things. I think this has a chance. This line has moved a ton. It's been Seattle -1, Arizona -1, even back to Arizona -1. I'm taking the Seahawks, just simply keeping those expectations a little low.
Yeah, it sounds like the rosters and coaching is kind of evenly matched here. The home field advantage, like the 12s are a real deal. It's very loud in that stadium. And I don't think the Seahawks have kind of figured it out a little bit. They got that win against the 49ers. They're kind of getting it back together a little bit. And to your point, the Cardinals have rattled off a bunch of wins against kind of subpar teams. So they might be ready to get humbled. When does the Black Ops curse hit Kyler? And
He's
was
put it to
off.
bed. There is
Yeah,
no curse.
I don't know. He's coming off a bye week where he was just going around eating pizza in New York. So we'll
I was just
see.
going to say this bye. I'm really interested to see Jonathan Gannon after a bye,
Yeah.
a meaningful bye, So real interested to see that for sure.
Here's the thing. I love Kyler. I think he does a great job. Great fantasy quarterback for me. And Marvin Harrison. They got Trey McBride. I love a good offense with a good tight end. So it's just hard to pick against the Seahawks in Seattle.
Philadelphia in LA, back-to-back primetime games at SoFi, by the way. I found that kind of odd.
Yeah.
Philly in LA taking on the Rams. Rams have looked much better once healthy. Philly's just due a loss, I feel like, at this point. They play teams way too close. That's not going to fly against the likes of a gunslinging Matthew Stafford. I'm taking the Rams in an upset win on Sunday Night Football.
The reason the Eagles started to fall off at the end of last season was coaching questions, and they got rid of both coordinators, and the defense couldn't stay healthy, and they were not good up the spine. They have fixed both of those things in the offseason. I think the Eagles start to pick up steam ending the season, and this the whole Rams season didn't quite go the way they were hoping, and I think it's put to bed here, Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm a huge Howie Roseman fan. The way he builds a team, that offensive line, and then you could have put anyone behind that offensive line, and they would have gotten 110 yards a game and a touchdown. And he's like, well, you know what? Let's just take our strength and make it a super strength. And they went and got Saquon, and he's rewarding everyone who picked him in fantasy with like 33 points a game. So I'm definitely on the Eagles hype train right now.
And then Monday Night Football, back-to-back nights. So we had primetime last week at SoFi, and then it's another primetime game in this week, back-to-back again at SoFi. It's Baltimore versus the LA Chargers. They sneaked away with it last week against another AFC North team. I don't think that Jim Harbaugh magic can sustain here against John, and the Ravens just have the better roster, and I'm going to take the Ravens.
I don't think Baltimore loses 2 games in a row. I think the Chargers are due a loss. I'm going with my gut, and I'm picking the LA Chargers to get an upset on Monday Night Football, dropping Baltimore to 7-5. My Super Bowl champ pick. They might be 7-5.
I think Lamar's just too much. And then the John over Jim. I mean, the few times they've played, John's come out on top. And believe me, I love to see Justin Herbert. It pains me that he went to a division rival. But I think he's going to light it up. That secondary is just not even a porous, like, holes in it. It's just open. They might as well play without it. Like, Kyle Hamilton does a good job coming up on the line of scrimmage, but I think Herbert and Lamar have a little bit of a shootout, and Lamar comes out on top.
There you have it. Doss, good luck. Trying to go perfect. That would be something, man. Because we've never had anyone go perfect. That would be something else. If there's anyone to do it, you're probably our best X's and O's guy that we've had on the show. So interested to see how that goes. Appreciate you hopping on, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Cole,
Tanner,
always good to chat. I've got nothing this weekend. And by nothing, I mean no responsibilities. I'm just going to sit and watch football and basketball.
Yeah, I got football responsibilities.
Oh,
I got football watching responsibilities. Mm-hmm. Very nervous for BYU ASU on Saturday. That's going to be something else.
Billingham's doing well. It's hard to, like, anytime someone goes home, you got to root for them. I didn't like Kenny Dillingham as an OC at Oregon. I felt like it was also kind of that transition period away from our high flying offense into a little bit more of the crystal ball, run it kind of thing. So there was that. But he went home to ASU and is balling out. I think he's the youngest coach in FCS or all of college football. He's just I think he's 37 or 38, leading a program to 8-2. Could be in the conference championship. So
youngest coach to ever lead a team to a bowl game, which is crazy. This was one of the few wins I had BYU getting at the beginning of the year. I thought they beat their FCS, they beat Wyoming, lose to SMU in between, and then lose a bunch of games in a row till they get to ASU, and then beat ASU and beat Houston to end the year. But now the chance at a Big 12 championship spot on the line. So,
also just last week we had our first time where we had we root for 3 different college football teams that were tracking for the playoff. Did it again this week. That's right. This has been Wilk and Wiss, your bi-weekly breakdown of Utah athletes in the National Football League. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll give you that recap on Monday.